Trauma has many faces. It can stem from childhood, broken relationships, loss, illness, or moments that change everything. For each person, trauma leaves an imprint, shaping how they see themselves and the world. In turning your trauma into your testimony, the healing journey, we bring you real stories of individuals who have confronted their pain and are finding a way forward. Each episode delves into a unique journey, a path through sorrow, strength, and self discovery. Their testimonies remind us that while trauma may change us, healing can help us redefine who we are. These are their stories, these are their healing journeys. Now, have you ever experienced trauma in any form, whether that's childhood abuse, domestic violence, loss, or even cultural or intergenerational pain? This is a safe space for you to share your story, connect with others, and find the support you need. Join us as we build a community of healing and understanding where your journey is honored and your voice truly matters. This episode may contain discussions of sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including various forms of trauma such as abuse, accidents, loss, and violence. Listener discretion is advised. Please prioritize your well being, and if any part of this content is distressing, consider pausing or seeking support. Today, we're joined by Jacques Delorme. I'm saying his last name wrong, whose story is of trauma, resilience, and self worth is a testament to the power of self care and emotional healing. After experiencing a life changing car accident, Jacques was determined to find his way to move forward. Through self care practices and sharing his story, he has now inspired others to see that trauma doesn't define us and healing is within reach. Join us as he shares his journey from tragedy to resilience and the strategies he's used to reclaim his life. Hello, Jacques. Can you
Hi,
please tell me how to pronounce your last name?
Delorme.
Delorme. Okay. Wasn't there a car named after that? Or
That's a DeLorean.
yeah, okay, okay.
Close.
All right. Well, we're going to jump right in. And what I'd love for you to do is if you share your story with us, tell us a little bit about what you've been through, how you've overcome it, and where you are now in life.
Sure. I've been in and around personal development since 2012. And that really didn't prepare me to go through what I went through 3 years ago. It was in October of 2021. It's a little bit past COVID. And I was heading east from where I live in Saskatchewan over into Manitoba to go see a real estate advisor that I had hired. It's at night. It's 8 o'clock at night, so it's dark. It's a moonless night. I'm on a divided highway here in Canada, so I'm traveling somewhere around 70, 75 miles an hour at the time. And I'm needing food. I hadn't eaten anything since noon. It's 8 o'clock, and I'm late for supper at this point. There's a gas station on the north side of the highway, so off my left. And I go into the left lane to take a stop and get some food. Because it's post COVID, though, everything in Saskatchewan at that point had been shutting down at 7 o'clock. Lights are on, nobody's walking around, and there's no vehicles. So I'm thinking it's probably not open. That's just a security thing, leaving the lights on. So I kept going. I'm in the left lane. I go around a slight curve, slightly downhill, and I never saw him in time. 24-year-old man on a pedal bike is riding in the middle of my lane, and I never see him. I hit him going full speed. Didn't even get a chance to swerve my steering wheel at all. His body goes up over top of my hood of my car, smashes into my windshield, bounces up and over, and lands somewhere behind my car, somewhere on the highway. I'm in shock. My windshield's destroyed, and I'm not able to see where I'm going anymore. I use the left side of the highway to figure out where I am. I hit the brake, come to a stop, get on my flashing lights, and call 911. I talk to her for a little bit. She checks me out. I'm okay. My airbags didn't go off. His body's not heavy enough to slow the car down. So my airbags are not deployed. So that didn't cause me an issue, just flying glass, and that was it. I have my emergency first aid. I've had it for years being a long-time coach. I suggested I could go back and at least find him and see if I can't render some sort of medical assistance. That a little bit that I could do. She agreed. So I head out and it's dark, really dark. My phone really isn't of any value. The light on it's not near bright enough. I have just enough light from the gas stations about a quarter mile back at this point, just enough light to be able to see where I'm going. So I walk along the highway, find him. His body's lying on the center line of the highway with his head facing oncoming traffic. I call to him, no response. He's not moving. He's not conscious. I don't know if he's alive. I was warned not to go out there to check him because it's a high-speed highway. I'm wearing a dark blue golf shirt and blue jeans, so I'm not visible. So rather than run the risk, I was told to stay where I was. So I'm on the side of the highway calling to him, nothing. Turns out not even a minute goes by. A mid-sized SUV comes around the curve. I'm thinking, great, I've got some help. I'm waving, trying to flag them down. They don't see me. It's dark. They're going around the slight curve. They never see me, and they don't see him. The instinct when you're driving is to never hit something with your tires because you could get into an accident. So you tend to swerve to avoid it, or you swerve to take it between your tires so that it passes under your vehicle. In this case, I don't know why they chose what they did. They swerved left, and they took the body between the front tires. There's no clearance for a human body under a mid-size SUV. So when they went over him full speed, and you could hear the body clunk underneath the chassis as they went right over top of him. It took his body from being like this and flipped him 180 degrees, sent him head first in the air, 7 feet in the air, 50 feet down the highway, launched him like an arrow. Falling behind the vehicle, eventually loses momentum, comes down, lands on the concrete, rolls, and stops across the right-hand lane. The SUV braked for about 3 seconds and hit the gas hard and left. They panicked, and then we never saw them again. They never came back. We never saw them again. We have no idea who they were. So I'm walking back towards my car, kind of aimlessly walking, not sure what to do at this point. And the 911 operator just told me, get back to your car, be on the side of the highway. It's dangerous. Somebody could try to avoid hitting him and hit me. So I'm walking back to my car. I'm not even up to the point where the body is yet. And another big sound comes from behind me and lots of lights. Semi with a flatbed trailer is coming around the curve. And where's the body? And I know what's coming. He's not going to move that vehicle quick enough out of that lane. I'm at least going to try. So I'm screaming, waving my arms, trying to get his attention to warn him that there's something in the highway ahead of him. He took his foot off the gas. He just saw what it was, but no chance to swerve. So he ended up taking the driver's side tire, front tire, hit the body right around the pelvis, flipped it sideways towards the middle of the highway. So the rest of the tires didn't get him, but the front tire did. And he had stopped up not far from my car. I kept going back to my car, get in, and just wait for the police to arrive because there's nothing I can do for him. He's dead. There's nothing I can do, and it's too dangerous being out there at this point. Police eventually arrived. I could see the lights, flashing lights in my rearview mirror. I get out. Semi's gone. He left. He had panicked as well, and he had taken off, and we never saw him again either. At this point, I'm working with the police, giving my story, giving them an idea, okay, here's what's happened. And I didn't really know what to do at that point. That started my journey from there to trying to sort out, A, how do I get through this? And B, what do I do? I'm stuck in another province, no vehicle, my vehicle's totaled, it's not going anywhere. And I've got to find a way to get home and find some way to put my life back together again.
So, my first question for you is, how did this traumatic event initially affect you, both mentally and emotionally?
One of the biggest things that I found right away is the what if stories. What if I'd left home sooner? What if I had stopped to get some food? Stopped at the gas station? What if I'd come through during the daytime? Would I have still met him? Would I have still had him in front of me? Or is he waiting till dark to do this? Right. So a lot of the what ifs don't do me any good. All it does is have me beat myself up. So eventually I had to find a way of trying to get through that and stop that. I was spending every single day basically at a stress level of about a 6 or a 7 out of 10, consistently every day, all day, not able to get rid of it. It's that ball of lead that sits in your sternum, in the middle of your chest, and you just can't seem to get rid of it. And it's not going away. Doesn't matter what I was doing, what I was trying, I couldn't get it to stop. And I was getting really tired of the pain. It was hard. Anytime a trigger happens, for example, driving was not great when I got back, especially at night. I avoided driving at night. I tended to drive during the daylight. But passing somebody with dark clothing on the sidewalk beside the street, my first instinct was, what's your brain do? Well, it's trying to protect you. So it runs stories. And it goes, oh, look out, they're going to jump out in front of you. So I start to have a stress level that's constantly going up and getting triggered over and over and over again for the simplest little things causing me issues. And that's just, it did send me from a level 6, 7 to a level 10. From that point, it was my stress level always being really high. I'd get to a stress level of 10. And the first instinct that you have is to go home, crawl into the blankets in your bed and hide and just disappear and try and get away from everything and anything that's going to cause that trigger. So it was difficult trying to just get through a normal everyday life and try to just to cope with everything.
Okay, now watching the cyclist being hit multiple times must be been extremely devastating. But seeing the other cars pull off and not stop to the side, how did this experience shape your immediate view of yourself and the world around you?
Fear. I would say that my largest fear from having been through it was the fear of being labeled a killer because somebody died
Hmm.
that I was directly involved with. It wasn't my fault. I was never charged with anything. So that helped a lot to try and set my mind at ease a bit. But at the same time, he's dead. He's 24 years old, young guy. Uh, that's hard. And I didn't tell anybody. I told very few people when I got home, and it took me 10 months before I ever really started talking about what happened and trying to relay my story to people I knew that I did experience this. This is something I went through and try to start to talk about it.
So, in the aftermath, did you feel isolated in dealing with your trauma? And how did that impact your relationships or your connections with others initially?
One of the issues I had, the police warned me that when I got through this, I may feel okay that day when it happened, maybe the next day, but within a couple of days, I was going to start to struggle. And they knew that, having been through the experiences they've been through, and warned me to get help. I did try to get help initially. The next day, I called my healthcare provider from work to get a counselor, and I was told, yeah, we can see you next Wednesday. And I'm like, it's Thursday now. So you want me to wait a week? That's not good enough. I need somebody today. They said, okay, so we'll get you some help. We'll see if somebody can take you as on a short notice. We can't guarantee anything. We'll see if somebody can call you. And that was it. That's the best they could do. Okay, fine. 5 hours later, I get a phone call. A young lady, younger voice, female, and that really didn't go well. They have counselors that they have that will help you, but she was ill prepared for somebody who experienced trauma.
Yeah.
She was more of a general counselor, so had no idea how to deal with me. And it showed very quickly in the way that she was treating me. Like she was placating a 5-year-old who skinned their knee on the playground sort of mentality, like an elementary school teacher. And she's, it's all right, you'll be okay. And well, no, that's not the way I'm going to respond. Responding to that's really, really hard. It's like, that just wasn't what I needed. Conversation didn't last very long. Once I got through that, I actually was able to see a psychologist for a little while till my coverage ran out. I saw him 3 sessions with him. I also saw a life coach to do something called neuro-linguistic programming. It's a way of dealing with your emotions and dealing with communication in your head, visualization, to come to terms with something that's happened, is the best way I could describe it. And I was able to do that over a number of sessions over several weeks. And that helped a lot to settle down my nervous system more than anything. When I got triggered, I always went back to the way I was feeling when the accident happened. I was always being transported back to that every time I was triggered. What I was trying to do is trying to break that connection between the two, between the trigger and feeling the way I was feeling when the accident happened.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about neuro-linguistic programming. You said again that played a huge role in your
Yeah.
healing. How did these sessions influence your recovery and the way you approach challenges?
Neurolinguistic programming, from the way that I was taught it from the lady that I saw, I was able to take a 10,000-foot view of the accident and see it happen. And as soon as I started to react, I would take a step back, use like breathing techniques and whatnot to calm myself down, go back, see a bit more. And as I did that more and more often to calm down my nervous system, I was able to get closer and closer to the actual event. Instead of being from a 10,000-foot view, I was coming down closer. So I was actually seeing it from a little ways away, to the point where I could actually be putting myself back into beside the car on the highway and be able to see it from close up and not have a huge reaction. Now, that takes a long time. It takes a lot of practice. But as I got more and more used to doing that, now I can talk about it and my blood pressure doesn't go up, my heart rate doesn't go up. I still get a twinge of those feelings still. That's always going to be there because it was something so traumatic. But it's a lot better now than it was.
Okay. Now, you also mentioned developing a self-care strategy to manage your mental health. Could you tell us about the turning point that led to you prioritizing self-care and what steps you took to begin that journey?
I was in personal development for a long time, for almost 10 years at the point the accident happened. So I'd gotten a few strategies of how to deal with some things, but I was definitely needing more than what I had learned. I knew breathing techniques. I didn't do a ton of meditating or journaling or anything, but I picked those up as I started learning more about what I could do. Having a session with a counselor once a week, what do you do the other 6 days and 23 hours? That's the problem. I needed something. So I started working on my mindset, started working on meditation, journaling every day, working on affirmations. That helped a lot, but to keep myself into more of a positive mindset and changing my perspective. And my perspective of how I look at things was not always from a negative standpoint, because that negative standpoint creates your triggers. And that's what always kept me going back to the bad side of things and having that reaction.
Okay. Now, through this journey, you discovered resilience within yourself. How did this realization change your perspective on trauma and personal strength?
The trauma I experienced does not define who I am. My fear, yes, that was founded. Like, I was scared people were going to judge me because somebody died in an accident I was in, and
Mhm.
I hit them point blank. Right? That's just fact. Uh, but that doesn't define me as a person. So I needed to bury that whole concept of that fear, because it's really unfounded. People were not going to judge me on something I could not have avoided.
Yeah.
The more we learned about the cyclist, the more we found out that he was committing suicide. So it really wasn't my fault. He had done it intentionally. He was on the side of the highway and put his bike in front of my car on purpose. So that helped a lot with my mindset, not to worry too much about the whole fear of being labeled. At the same time, somebody's still dead, but I was able to work a piece at a time and start to communicate with people and letting people know what happened, and say that I am okay, and tell myself I am okay, right?
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. You said
Yeah.
that the cyclist was committing suicide. So he
Yep.
wasn't just riding, he was actually riding to be hit. Is that what you mean?
Yes. He was in front of me on purpose.
Okay, so he literally shifted his bike in front of you in order
Yes.
to take his own life. Now, after finding out about that, how did that make you feel?
That was a sense of relief, knowing that there really wasn't anything I could have done. That was part of what the what ifs piece was what if I'd reacted sooner? What if I'd swerved my car sooner? What if I'd seen him sooner? Could I have avoided what happened? He timed it in such a way that there was no way I was going to avoid him. There's nothing I could have done. Yeah, and even the police said the same thing, that it's just an unfortunate accident. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time with somebody who was doing it with an intent.
And how did the you finding out that intent affect the way you started to relook at your own trauma and the trauma you had experienced just from that incident alone?
For me, trying to sort out what to do, I needed to stop living in the past. It's like having a timeline. Left side's all the past stuff, and it's like, okay, this is all the ugly stuff back here. In the moment, center line, that's where I'm at. My mindfulness, understanding, okay, I've got a good life, I've got a good family, I've got a good job, I got lots of good friends, like living in the moment, and then having that other side, the positive, the goals and the aspirations of where do I go from here? I can't keep looking backwards. I knew I had to keep looking forwards. And I came to the realization after I wrote my book, and then when I wrote a book about the accident as part of my healing, realized that I wanted to do something with this. And that's when I made the decision a couple of months after I finished my book that I would become a life coach and I would start doing presentations and educating people on here are some of the things I learned from a lived experience. Because there are so many counselors who are counseling trauma survivors that have never experienced it.
Yeah.
So where's the first-hand account from people who actually have been there, who can share what they know and what they've been through? Maybe something that I use will be helpful to somebody else.
Okay. Now you shared that you now understand your value despite what happened. What was that journey to self-worth like and how did it help you find purpose in helping others?
Yeah, the self-worth piece was hard. And I'd struggled with that from my childhood as it was, and having been divorced. And there's a lot of other things that happened in my life that I already had a struggle with that. It was interesting that the accident itself precipitated a lot of other growth beyond just the accident.
Yeah.
And it sounds like from people I've talked to, that's pretty common, where you start to look at other parts of your life too. And you come to the realization that there's a few things I can work on. So I worked on more than just trying to deal with the accident. I worked on me a lot. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I really do represent for my life and what sort of things I want to do as a purpose. Like, what do I want to do with my life? And I came to that realization when I did the book and became a life coach. It's like, yeah, I like this. I like this a lot and helping people. So I became a teacher. I'm a teacher by trade, not in the classroom anymore, but still had that knack for how to teach people. So that's something that I just tapped into and started using.
Now, you mentioned that the accident made you focus on more than just fixing what happened with the accident. Were there any areas from your childhood or your past that were evoked by this traumatic experience alone?
The feeling of not being enough, which is likely one of the larger ones in society, from what psychologists will tell you. There's a lot of people who, from the experiences they had as a child, a lot of the beliefs that we have from psychology teachings was all developed under the age of 5.
Mhm.
So a lot of the beliefs that we have are structured around, well, a 5-year-old doesn't have life experience. So how many of those beliefs are actually based on fact? When in reality, they're not. It's based on a perception of a 5-year-old of what they're experiencing at that time. But it actually starts to develop then. And then if we don't make an effort to change it, you run into the problem of, whoops, I've got a belief system that really doesn't match reality. And I did a lot of that, a lot of the childhood journey to take a look at my childhood and take a look at some of the things that I experienced and how much of it was true and are my beliefs really accurate on the way that I feel about myself, and made changes from there.
Okay. So in writing your book, which you stated is a pivotal step for you, how did sharing your story publicly begin to change your healing journey and the connections with others? And did your book just focus on that event, or did it focus on all of the things that you had experienced and all of the ways that you were growing?
Yeah, when I wrote the book, the intent was to deal with the accident in quite a bit of detail at the beginning, and then talk about, here are the things I learned, here are the things I tried to try to get through it and get better. So I focused on that. I didn't talk a lot about a lot of the childhood regression pieces. A little bit, there's some of that there, but I did a lot more than what's in the book for me. I've had discussions with my parents, with my siblings. I've had discussions with friends. I've taken a look at what are the things I value the most in my life, and why do I not do those things more than the stuff that just satisfy other people's interests instead of my own? Why don't I put myself first instead of always putting somebody else ahead of me?
Okay. Now, this is my last question for you. For those who may be struggling with their own trauma, what message of hope and resilience would you most want them to remember as they navigate their own healing journey?
One of the things I mentioned early on was about resiliency, that don't give up. It's really easy when you go through something that's very traumatic to start to lose hope. We spend too much time in the past worrying about all this negative stuff, all the negative stuff that happened. Why couldn't I have gotten through that? Why can't I get through that? The negative piece that always exists from that past experience, it's going to be there. It's always going to come back. It's going to start to bug you to a certain extent because those memories are always there. But one of the things to remember to do from a resiliency perspective is to move on. You're not going to try to forget it. I was offered hypnosis to try to bury it and totally disagreed, because that doesn't always stick. So I'm going to try to bury something and then suddenly it comes all back. I needed to face it head on and just deal with it instead of trying to hide it. I wrote my book for a reason, to be able to get my story out so that people understood, and I can actually get people to communicate with me and help me through my process. Being mindful in the day and avoiding the negative stuff. Every single morning I get up and I meditate first. No phone, no email, no social media, all that's full of negative stuff. I don't need to start my day. I start with meditating first. And I always write, today is going to be a great day because, and fill it in. Fill it in with something that's very important for me for that day. And that gives me a goal. Having goals puts you forward, and always moving forward towards something that I'm going to strive for. That gives me hope. That gives me clarity on what my life purpose is. That helps me move forward and keeping a positive mindset. Using affirmations every day, saying, okay, I am such and such, right? I am a good listener. I am a good talker, right? I do good presentations. All these things that are very positive that I can then take forward and pump myself up all the time. Being very grateful for things has been proven in psychology to work really well, because you can't be grateful for something and be in a negative mindset at the same time. So being grateful is really important. Have gratitude for the things that you already have, and more will come for you. So the more you work on yourself, the more you work on your mindset, being mindful, having goals, working forwards, always striving to keep working forwards. You're going to have bad days. I still have bad days. I had a bad day yesterday. My day this morning didn't start well, but I get through it. The more I practice, the more I get really good at it, and I can get through it much quicker. It used to be several days to get through a bad mood. Now it's a couple of hours, even less on some days. So being resilient enough to understand you need to keep working forwards and don't stagnate in that past event and struggling with all the negative mindset.
Well, Jock, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your powerful story with us today. Your journey from trauma to resilience is an inspiring reminder that we are not defined by any of our circumstances. By embracing your self-care and finding purpose in helping others, you actually show that healing is possible even after the darkest experiences that we've had. So again, thank you so much for being on here and sharing your story with us.
Well, thanks very much, Cami.
Now, you guys, if you've experienced any of the traumas like we've discussed today, whether it was a car accident, childhood trauma, loss, medical challenges, or again, even intergenerational pain, know that you are not alone and your story matters. Reach out, share with us, and continue the journey of healing together. I want you to I want you to take from Jacques' story that it's a reminder that the resilience lies within each of us. And with patience and support, we can all find our way forward. Thank you for joining us, and may you find strength in your own journey towards healing as well.
You've just witnessed one person's journey from trauma to healing, a testament to strength, resilience, and the power of hope. In each story lies a reminder: healing is personal, often difficult, but possible. As we continue through turning your trauma into your testimony, the healing journey, may each story offer a path, a perspective, or even just a moment of connection for your own journey. Thank you for being part of this healing journey.